Several important features in this week's Parsha, which is Parshat Mishpatim. Those who learn Kabbalah already understand that the comprehensive understanding concerning incarnations, souls that are incarnated, etc., all of these different rules concerning incarnations originate with the Zohar in this week's Parsha. And I'd like to begin off just by reading a part of the Zohar concerning that, although I'd like to, there are many aspects within this study of incarnation that we have not spent that much time. Patach Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon began, V'amar, Ve'ela ha'mishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. The verse begins, these are the, it can be interpreted in many ways. These are the judgments that you should put before them. These are the according to the Zohar, according to Rabbi Shimon, Tirgum Vilu Dinim de Tisader Kadmehon, Ilu Inun Sidurim de Gilgula. What he's referring to when he says Mishpatim is not merely matters concerning courts, judgment, which is also included in this week's Parsha, but also the rules, not only rules of economics, but rules concerning Gilgulim, incarnations. Dinim dinishmatin, rules concerning the soul. Danu kol chad v'chad l'kabel onsho, and that how each soul, according to the conduct of the soul, so will be the punishment or reward concerning the activities of the soul. And so this is another aspect. Are they contradictory? Of course not. They are one and the same thing. One and the same thing. What I would like to touch on this morning, that from the Ari, one aspect of what we would like to discuss this morning, and that is the verse. The verse begins, very beginning, immediately after the verse that we just quoted from the Zohar, which is verse 1. Second verse is, Ki tikne eved ivri, when you shall purchase a Hebrew slave, shesh shanim yavod, he should work 6 years, only 6 years, and vashvi'it yetze lachofshi chinam, and the seventh year, he is to go out without any payment. In other words, irrespective of why this person was sold as a slave, he cannot be a slave no more than 6 years. Now the Ari in the Likutim, because this question is not raised directly in the Zohar. In the Sefer Likutim, is volume 18, in Parshat Mishpatim, Yesh l'shol. The Ari says we should ask, Lama gazar Hashem yitbarach she'eved yavod sheish shanim lo pachot v'lo yoter. Why is there a decree from God that a slave must work 6 years, not 5, not 7, but only 6? Now this is another aspect that, in fact, practically is never discussed because it doesn't sound right. Like much of the Torah doesn't sound right, and so those parts that don't sound right, you just don't discuss it. It says here, Im Adonav yiten lo isha, v'yalda lo vanim o vanot. If his non-employer, but now since he is considered to be a eved meaning slave, that if his lord, which is the way it is stated in the Torah, should give him a wife who is not Jewish, and she shall give birth to sons or daughters, ha'isha viladeh tia ladoneh. The children that emerge from this union belong to the Lord, v'hu yetzei begapo, and he is to go out by himself. As I always said, thank God not too many people read the Bible. I mean, because if they had to read the Bible just by virtue of a translation, I can't see how too many people would remain with the satisfaction that this is what the verse implies. Because the Ari says, why does this slave that was sold into slavery, and the Talmud says the reason why this person finds himself in slavery is because he had stolen, and now he must return. And so the punishment process, according to the Torah, is far different than the system that exists in our society, whether it be in the United States, in some of the places of dictatorships, but even in modern Western societies, the system is that the person who perpetrates a crime, if he is wealthy, then he has to pay. If he's not wealthy, then what happens? He's incarcerated. He's sent to jail as a punishment. That is not the system of the Torah. The system of the Torah is if someone steals, doesn't go to jail, but the point is remuneration. What if he stole someone's money and now this person doesn't have what to eat? What the Torah says, this person must work and restore the physical, and we will shortly learn even if there was a fight, a felony, which one person beat the other, we will again find out that he's not immediately incarcerated, receiving a year or 2 years punishment, but rather he must work to pay off the damage that he incurred, but not merely as a punishment so that he'll never do it again. Because, in fact, the system has failed. We know that most people, once they are incarcerated in a prison, will always return again. 90%, maybe 80% of people who have served time in prisons for various offenses will always return. So here the Talmud says that the reason this person was sold as a slave, and he's referred to as a slave. Now, why is he referred to as a slave? That's why the Zohar goes on to a whole different interpretation. That we're talking about a soul that's imprisoned in a particular body. The influence of this body, which will incur a great deal of pain, etc. Because this is the retribution that the soul who stood by, the soul who did not exercise sufficient influence over the what we call body consciousness. So on this, the Ari raises another question. Sheyesh aveda chamura, obal bat el necha. And how could he how could the Lord give this non-Jewish as a wife to this slave, since it states clearly that having relationships with a non-Jewish is not an offense that carries with it very severe punishment, but nevertheless it is not condoned by the Torah. And so why here, in this case, should this slave be given why should this woman slave, Shifcha Kananit, who is not Jewish, be given? V'lama nishtane eved ivri miyama ivriya. Now, in case a father sells his daughter, it doesn't sound right, but this is what it states in the Torah. So, as we know in Kabbalah, we have no fear of omitting certain sections in the Torah because they don't sound right. It says, in case a father sells his daughter as a slave, and the reason he did that, he needed money. But she can only be a young girl. So it says clearly, lo teitzei kitzeit havadim. The things that the way she is to be treated is different than the way the male Jew who sold into slavery. And the Ari says, why do we distinguish between the female and the male? Meaning, in this case, the female is given preference. There are certain things that the Lord can or cannot do, whereas here, there is nothing that the Lord cannot do insofar as achieving the purpose of why this person was sold into slavery to begin with. And he quotes in the Talmud, the tractate Kiddushin, Tana Rabban, Eved Ivri oved et haben ve'ino oved et habat. Eved Ivri oved et haben ve'ino oved et habat. That in case ve'eved Kanani oved et haben ve'ino eved Kanani mesinu she'oved et kulam shenema v'hitnachaltem otam lemnechem acharechem. In other words, we learn that assuming the Lord died, then the possession or the time that this male Jewish slave still has some time to work for this particular Lord, that right of the son to also continue not the employment, but continue the services of this slave continues until the end of the 6th year, even though the Lord might have died in between. However, that is not true. And ve'ino oved et habat. But he does. But in case there is no son, only a daughter, he does not serve the daughter. But an Eved Kanani, but let's say the slave is a non-Jew, then he serves forever. He serves forever. And the Ari answers very simply. Amnam soda inyanhu sha'adam yesh lo nefesh maseha va'af im yiyeh me'eza b'china mu'ula shaba eino ki im nefesh v'hi nikrat asiyah shivcha. And he goes into a long, which is not what I want to cover, but he states that when someone is sold, in this case, is sold as a slave, then we have to assume that and as I pointed out before, the Talmud says that he committed an offense in which he now has to make some retribution, that this slave this slave, having gone through the offenses that he'd gone through, we must assume that he is of the level of a soul of the lowest, meaning only nefesh. Now we know that there are different levels of souls. We know that in our time, that each soul has nefesh, ruach, neshama, chayechida, and that what we are required in this world to restore, meaning that's the way we earn and remove bread of shame, by elevating our souls, And therefore, when an individual is sold into slavery, or someone commits an offense, the Ari is telling us firstly to understand that the secret, and he's going to go on into the particulars of the questions that were raised, that when things happen, that we do commit offenses, whatever, sometimes there are serious offenses, sometimes lesser offenses, we have to understand that those offenses that are committed have to do with a soul that this person has not achieved any elevation in his level. And therefore he goes on to explain that when it says that he only serves the son and not the daughter, what we're discussing here again is daughter, meaning malchut, and ben, meaning this is the Talmud. Can you imagine studying the Talmud? And I know I studied this tractate in the Talmud, and it was very difficult. Of course, we found some answers, but certainly they weren't answers that today would have satisfied me. That the soul, he says it, when it says daughter, it's referring to malchut. When it's referring to son, referring to Zeir Anpin. And of course, we have learned already what's the difference between malchut and Zeir Anpin. One, malchut. In fact, when it says what will be the difference between before Mashiach and after Mashiach, the Talmud raises that question. The Zohar also raises that question. And the answer is shibud malchut. Being subject, being almost a slave, being mortgaged to malchut. That's the only difference. In other words, nothing is really going to change, except we no longer will be subject to this influence that many times we cannot overcome, the influence of malchut. What is the influence of malchut? Not the desire to receive, but the desire to receive for the self alone. That influence will no longer exist. That is the influence of Satan. That will be the only difference. Everything continues. But by the removal of that, then the poor man no longer looks on how he can become rich, nor the rich man looks, if he's not well, everyone will be able to heal themselves. But everyone will be satisfied in their particular position, because right now, the influence of malchut is such a nature that nobody is happy. I shouldn't say nobody, but most people are not happy, because everybody is looking at some place. We say the grass is greener, meaning there is something out there that he feels a lack. Again, desire to receive. And that will be the difference. So when the Ari says that these people that we're discussing here receiving this kind of punishment or retribution that must be made, we're discussing that when these offenses take place, we should understand that we are discussing someone of a level of nefesh, someone who is still involved with the malchut, someone still involved with the malchut. And this is why the Zohar then goes on to explain when it says here shifka knanit, and yet it's not permitted. That was one of the questions. David Kanani, shehu neshama sheyatsa lechutz v'nivgama v'alta v'nechnasa b'asiyah, ovedet et hakol. In other words, we are not discussing a non-Jewish or a non-Jew, but that's what it says. It says Knani. And here this is the revelation of both the Zohar, because, as I said, reading literally, and if someone is a liberal-minded individual, couldn't deal with the way that the Zohar describes the differences between Jew and non-Jew. And the answer is, it doesn't mean that. Says the Ari, when we are discussing Evet Knani that must serve forever, it is discussing a soul, shu neshama sheyatsa lechutz v'nivgama. What does Knani mean? Meaning someone who's gone out. That's the word. What Knani means, has gone out of the structure and the law and order of the universe. There's a certain law, certain principles that maintain balance in the universe. Someone who goes outside of these laws, and that's what we refer to as committing an offense. In other words, and his soul then becomes pagum, becomes defiled. And where does he wind up because of that? And what does it mean, Evet Knani? Ovedet et hakol shehi mitzad hamalchut. Because he has taken this soul that could have risen to Zerampin, or as we say, Ruach, Neshama, Chai Yechidah, and what he does with this soul is commit offenses. By committing these offenses, he has quantumly affected the whole of the universe, because the universe is balanced. By him going into and becoming affiliated, connected with Malchut, he has taken himself out from the rules of nature. The reason I gave you this introduction is because to understand, as the Ari wasn't ashamed to ask these questions. We rarely hear these questions being asked because, well, God knows what he wrote, and if I don't understand it, then I have to assume that's a problem within myself and not with the text. But that is not correct. The Ari raises these questions, and he gives another interpretation. That doesn't seem to conform with a literal or superficial understanding. Now, there's another aspect that as you will notice, we've had the Zohar reincarnation. There are classes on them, and so I wanted to add another dimension, that which is usually not referred to in Mishpatim, because again, we should not move away from that which is dealt with on a literal basis as well, although our interpretations will not be literal, not be superficial, but nevertheless, it is not only a question of the laws concerning incarnation, as the Zohar describes, all of the different levels, all of the different aspects and types of souls, and why and how we can deal within our own lives when we understand the process of reincarnation. And of course, we can deal with people a lot differently than we normally do. And it says here, that in case of Hiruvin Anashim Vika Ish Etreyehu, there should be a fight, and Be'even Ovegrov, and if during the course of this disagreement or argument, then one man will raise up his hand with a stone or with his fist. V'lo yamot v'nafal lemishkav, and this person that he injured will not die, and he will be bedridden. Im yakum mitaleh b'chutz al mishtato v'nika hamakeh, and if this person ultimately can get up from his bed, then this person is nikah. He's absolved from any further punishment. Nikah hamakeh rak shifto yiten v'rapo yirapeh. The only thing that this perpetrator of this crime, this offense of beating another person, is that he must pay for the time that he could not earn any money, and v'rapo yirapeh, and most English translations are, and he must also pay the doctor bills. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyah bidvaro. Amen. If we look closely at the v'rapo yirapeh, it does not say v'rofe yirapeh, that the doctor should heal. And there are many different versions as to what this means. V'rapo yirapeh. And healing, shall he be healed. So Rashi brings the Targum, Onkelos, the one who wrote a translation in Aramaic, and he says, Yishalem schar harofeh. Very simple. That he is to pay the doctor. And the commentator, what does Rashi mean? He should pay. It doesn't say v'rapo yirapeh. It doesn't say that he should pay the doctor. Or not, it would have said he should pay for the effort that this doctor took, and therefore he should be compensated. It does not say that. And the commentators on this particular, since I said it does literally, it does not say that he must pay for the doctor. Then I asked myself a simple question. I wonder where this doctor received his degree. Was it Harvard Medical School? Who ascertained, who gave him accreditation that he's a doctor? I'm going back now, let's say, time of the Torah, 3,400 years ago. They're in the wilderness. There's a doctor. Well, who is this doctor? Well, it could be, like in Africa, there are witch doctors, self-proclaimed healers, and even today, in Western society, there are self-proclaimed healers who say that he can heal. And do they go through a normal course of study at some medical school? The answer is no. But yet they claim to be healers. How does one become a healer? And this is really the subject. Because on both the Onkelos, the translation in Aramaic, and Rashi, who agrees with this translation and says, Yishalem schar harofeh, which, as I've always pointed out, Rashi is far more difficult than the Zohar, because Rashi is absolutely cryptic. It is very difficult to understand Rashi because, first of all, Rashi would use 1, 2, or 3, or 4 words to interpret a section of the Torah, and the Zohar on that very same section will go on and on and on, only because Rashi provides us with certain concealed clues. That's why Rashi cannot be studied without the Zohar. Rashi could not be understood. And here, one it's a Mechilta, says that Kloma avohu lo yirape oto ba'atzmo, but he can't heal himself. Why can't he heal himself? Maybe he's a healer. I mean, why must he go to a doctor? What happens if he says, I can heal myself? First of all, if he does heal himself, does the other person have to pay him? And it goes on to say, even though the person who beat him is a doctor, and doctors can also sometimes, I guess, get into a quarrel, he shouldn't heal him. Shouldn't heal him. Why couldn't he heal him? I mean, what does the knowledge of the doctor have to do with healing this fellow that he just beat? But here we see another aspect to what a doctor means. I think today certainly in fact, I want to also mention before I go further that the Ramban, Nachmanides, who was a Kabbalist, also says, it says, "V'rapo yerapeh, v'lo oma shifto v'rufuato yiten." It doesn't say that just as the person who committed this felony of beating an individual, and it says he must pay for his unemployment, it does not say, says the Ramban, v'rifuato yiten, and he should give him also refuah. Doesn't say that. L'hagid sheyiten schar el harofim v'yarpeu oto v'lo yichol litvoa sheyiten lo haschar v'yaseh b'dvarim acherim. Also, to understand the Ramban, he says that this man cannot say, I guess that's what some people do when it comes to an insurance company. Comes to the insurance company, he says, I'm injured. All right, now pay, for this procedure. Something has to be done. Give me the money. And the fellow figures, or he knows how to heal himself, right? And he tells the insurance company, you know what this costs to heal. It costs $20. Give me the $20. And then he will go on and take the $20 and he won't heal him. Let's say he doesn't want to heal himself. He prefers the $20. Says the Ramban that he can only ask him for money. He can only ask him for money for someone to heal him. He cannot take that money, which is going for healing purposes, and spend it for other things. It happens sometimes a person is involved in an automobile accident, right? And the insurance company pays for the damage to the automobile, but he doesn't repair the automobile. He'd rather go around that way. Maybe this person would rather go around with the injury and not be healed. Says the Ramban, no. He cannot ask the person who committed this felony, give me the money that it would cost to heal, and he then will go on and use the money for other purposes. That's the halakha, according to the Ramban. That's the halakha. Why? What does the Ramban want to say with that? Why, if he wants to be healed or he doesn't want to be healed, that should be his prerogative. Why does the Ramban say that he should give him refuato yiten, that this person must give him the money that will create healing? No, he only gives him money if there will be healing, if there will be a rofeh, a doctor involved, and that doctor will be paid to heal. So we see both from Rashi, both from the Mechilta, and all of the others too, struggle with this word, because it does not say he should pay for the refuah, although the Ramban interprets that. Rak yirapeh bo al kol panim. V'rapo yirapeh. Meaning that when you receive money for healing, it must go towards the healing process. Why? And this, frankly, I've raised that question. I mean, I've learned this in Ramban, and I have to admit that I didn't see why the Ramban should make this stipulation that I can't collect. Why can't I collect the money? Maybe tomorrow I'll want to heal. If you want to go to a doctor and be healed, assuming the doctor will heal him, what happens if he doesn't heal him? Now, they say about Chinese medicine, the doctor does not take a fee until he heals the patient. Here in the United States, I'm not saying that sometimes the doctor can even make the condition worse, but the first thing is, he tells you what his fee is before he will treat you. He does not sign at the bottom that if I do not heal you, I will refund the money. I haven't found a doctor yet that, conducts himself in that manner. And yet, why is it different? Why when you go into purchase an automobile, there's a guarantee. And if something goes wrong, you can either return or the product, or if you buy cereal, it says refund guaranteed. That if you're not satisfied, mind you, not that there was something wrong with the product, but if you're not satisfied, we'll refund the money. And when it comes to medicine, or even a lawyer who takes on a case and loses, does he get paid? Yes. Why does he get paid? Why does he get paid? He did not, he performed the service, meaning he gave up his time. But that's when we understand, and this, of course, is what the Ramban is really teaching us, that here, why do we pay a doctor? I mean, I've heard this expression. Maybe it's not true. We pay it because of all the years that he spent and all the financial debts that he incurred to be able to receive the education. And now he is to be paid back for all the effort and for all the monies and expenditures that went into that education. Never do we say, I have to pay you because you're healing me. No. I mean, I believe this is what many of you have heard too. Why does a doctor charge? He does not charge because he's going to heal you. I guess the reason they don't say they're going to heal you, because then we may raise the question, but if I'm not healed, why are you asking me for money? He said. Therefore, we have to resort back to the idea that, listen, all the years he spent. So let's say it took General Motors 50 years to make a new car. And now they give me the car and it doesn't want to operate. Do they still say, you got to pay me? Because of all the research and monies that was involved in creating the product? No. And the question is, why in medicine? And therefore I said, from my understanding in China, that there is no fee or there's no payment to the doctor until the patient is healed. Now, why in Western medicine has it emerged that way? And according to the Ramban, the Ramban says, "She'ite naschar el harofim v'yirape oto." In other words, we cannot even ask, neither the doctor nor the patient can ask the person who committed the felony for payment for the doctor if he did not heal him. Because it says yirapeh, and he must heal him. It didn't say he must treat him. It says it must heal him. Then what's the problem? Well, I guess the answer is included in the first question. What made back 3,400 years ago when the Jews received the Torah on Mount Sinai and they read V'rapo Yerapeh, who decided who the doctor was? And the answer is very simply, the one who performed. The one who performed then understood that because he didn't receive an education, he doesn't know the first thing about the physical body, and in fact, present-day science also understands what? That you have a finger doctor, you have a palm doctor, you have an arm doctor, and you have a cardiologist, and you have a liver specialist, you have a lung specialist. I mean, we have all these specialties, and yet we all know today that while the pain may be in the finger, the origin of the pain does not originate in the finger. That everyone understands. But this is, he says, so what bothers you? You tell him, well, the finger bothers me. Well, so where do you go? You go to a finger doctor. It's medicine that's all corrupt. Maybe there's something wrong somewhere else. But this is where Western medicine has unfortunately gone, in this specialization. Again, absolutely stemming from a Satan consciousness. Just like I've stated on many occasions, and I guess for those who didn't hear it and for those who forgot it, I always mention the story about the Kabbalist who wanted to have a glass of tea, and he loved to have sweet tea. So he would hold a cup in one hand and have a cube of sugar. He would look at the cube of sugar, drink, too sweet. And so he'd put the cup down, break the cube of sugar in half, and then pick up the cup, look at the cube, now it's only half, drink, just right. I mean, how do you see if it's just right? I mean, doesn't he have to taste the tea with the sugar? I mean, can his eye taste? But like I said last week, on the Parsha of Yitro, they saw the voices. How do you see voices? You hear voices. That is only because our Satan has placed such a great number on us that every part, although how many times have you said, oh, I see what you're trying to tell me? Have you ever said that? Have you ever used the word, I see what you're trying to tell me? All the time. All the time. Right? Or you're speaking to a child, and then the child is not looking at you, and you want to tell the child something. Or even an adult. What do you tell him? I want you to look at me when I speak. I mean, doesn't he have ears? Doesn't he hear what you're saying? Why do you insist that he look at you when you speak? We use these expressions, meaning that when I look at the person and I speak to him, he will hear something more with his eyes than with his ears. But we forget that. We forget because Satan doesn't have a total control over us. But we are so fragmented, and of course this is through these sequences of Satan, implanting not an abagyatas, but turning the letters around and everything else, and creating what? Creating corruption within our own system. So we don't understand, we don't see anymore the way we should see. Seeing meaning not only with your eyes, but with your ears, with your tongue, etc. expressions that we have become so accustomed to even using, and yet we pay no attention. Shows you how Satan has taken away, how he's put us to sleep, as I say. Put us to sleep that read between the lines. How could you read between the lines? Between the lines, there's no words. How do you read between the lines? What that is trying to tell us, this other part, not Satan, is that the words and the paper all consist, they both made up the message. Could there be words without the paper? Could there be paper without the words? No, both combine. You need both. If you need both, that means both contribute. Each one contributes something else. Now, when we come back here to this physician, how does he know that he could heal? Yes. The Rofeh is someone who heals. Not the Rofeh is someone who received an accreditation or a degree. Is he a healer? Now, how does he become a healer? How does he become a healer? And therefore, the Ramban puts these stipulations. And we'll understand why is the Ramban saying that if the person says, look, I'm willing not to be healed. Willing not to be healed. Give me the money. That it would take, there is a doctor who has healed other people with the same condition. Now give me the money. Whether I want to go to the doctor or I don't want to go to the doctor, that should be my decision, not yours. Says the Ramban, no. You cannot ask the physician, you cannot ask the person who owes you this money to pay for a physician, give me the money despite the fact of whether I will use it for a doctor or not. From what we just said with this Kabbalist, that our minds are so corrupted, meaning it is so fragmented, that we separate things from each other, when the ultimate purpose of Kabbalah is to do what? Is to restore a unified mind. When everything is in unity, in harmony, what does that mean? Then, and only then are you connected, obviously, with the tree of life, and when you're connected with the tree of life, there is no illness. The illness, we say, is an illusion. Illness is illusion. A person who is suffering the pains of cancer, you call that an illusion? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Some people are healed. Well, obviously, something that does not remain eternally is called an illusion. Why do we call it an illusion, and yet it's so physical? Because we haven't learned how to remove illusion. We haven't learned how to remove that which is not within the scheme of the Yetzer Chaim, within the scheme of balance in the universe, within the scheme, right here as the Zohar says, I mentioned in Miracles, Mysteries, and Prayers, that we have two bodies. We have two bodies. One body is the body of Yetzer Chaim. The other body, the second body, is that body, not the first body, the second body. Well, what do I mean by a first body and a second body? I'll shortly explain what that means. Are there two bodies? As I mentioned, a person who loses an arm, loses a kidney, loses a tooth. Does he feel it? Yes. How could he feel it? The arm is gone. The answer is, what does he feel? The answer is that the same way, and we don't question anymore, the same way as when we go to a barber or we cut our nails and it grows back, the same DNA or the same instructions that are there, that from an egg and a sperm creates a body, creates hands, that means within the DNA there is the force to create an individual. What happened with that force? Where did the force go to? Did it disappear? So doctors today are studying this, and what they have discovered is that when a person begins the aging process after age 20, certain enzymes that give instructions, as we know that every 7 years, this is a whole new body. It is not the body. Every 7 years, it's not the previous body. When we reach the age of 7, we have undergone a complete regeneration. No part of the physical body is there. No part. It's a whole new body. It's not the same body. Every 7 years, the whole body undergoes a regeneration. Now, as we get older, somehow there's instructions. I'm repeating their words. There's an instruction here: slow down. Slow down until it comes to a point when the aging process really sets in. You see people looking like they're 190 and 200. Although some people look, I've seen people at age 100 the first time in San Diego. They don't look like 100. They look more like 50. Okay. But anyway, we're told, the doctors say, researchers say, that it's given instructions not to regenerate anymore. And therefore, a person dies. And we know that's not true. We know that's not true. Because the doctor says, the Zohar says, that death is not because he expired, he died. The body, the heart doesn't work. Nothing else functions. The kidneys don't operate. The lungs do not perform the way they should, etc. No such thing. Because the Zohar says the process of what created the body in the first place is still there. It's still there. But, says the Zohar, Satan had been given permission. Like we say, Shara Katan. We open up gates. He comes in. He is the Memit. Not, the person, his organs and parts of his body are not functioning anymore, and so he died. No, this is an active process by Satan. And when there is an aging process, when there is no healing process, doctors can't do anything to improve the condition, because he never can improve the condition. I say, take the orthopedist. He can put the bones together, but he certainly doesn't heal. That should be our first clue. No doctor ever heals in Western medicine. He does not heal. Never healed. He can do a heart transplant, take a heart from here and there, but the process then is left to the body, whether the body will accept it, will not accept it, whether it will adjust. But this has nothing to do with the doctor. All he did was to put it in the vernacular, he's like a plumber, installed a new piece of pipe that rusted. He doesn't heal. We have to take that out of our consciousness. They don't heal. Oh, he's a good doctor. What do you mean he's a good doctor? Well, he survived. So that makes him a good doctor. No. Neither does doctor have to do with surviving or dying. Chas v'shalom. So the Zohar says that there is an activity on the part of Satan. He is the Malach HaMavet. He is that force that creates death. It's not that death occurs as a result of the body not functioning, but on the contrary, he's putting everything to sleep. The same way as this regeneration process suddenly is instructed, and they think they found the enzyme that always instructs, and when a person gets older, the enzyme begins to disappear. So don't you see? Aging means that the enzyme disappears, but maybe there's a cause. Maybe Satan is not permitting the enzyme to perform. It's primitive medicine. Primitive medicine. Primitive medicine. And only with this understanding can we now begin to understand what the Ramban is trying to say, what the Rashi is saying, what the Mechilta is saying, what all of them have difficulty. The Ibn Ezra, which is also interesting, I'd just like to mention it to you. Also, on this verse, V'rapo yerapeh, Amakeh hu miyad ha'adam, v'yochol adam l'refo'oto. When a person, I think we need this too, when a person receives an injury from another person, a person can heal. Umi yirapeh sheyakeh Hashem, but what happens, like cancer? Does it come up? Well, we're even trying to do that. The atmosphere, the water we drink is polluted, and maybe many other, and they're still looking for the outside feature that caused the illness. But let's say we can't find it. We can't find it. Why this person is afflicted? Because it's so ludicrous when two people living in the same house, eating the same food and everything else, one has cancer and one doesn't have cancer. I mean, what are you looking for? You're looking for the environment, you're looking for the water they drank, etc. So it seems like sometimes the light force, but it's never the light force that beats us. We understand what it means. It means when Satan, through an Aveda, only through our consciousness, when we have stolen, when we have done some of the other offenses of the Torah. So what happens? We do an Aveda. Aveda means what? A sin? No. It means what we have done is transferred energy to Satan. That's what Aveda means. Nothing more, nothing less. We have strengthened only through the strengthening of Satan. And that's why we have the Chet Beit Vav. That's why we have the Yud Lamed Yud today. What are we doing with that? What we're trying to do is return. That's what tshuva really means. I thought I once knew what tshuva meant. When we do tshuva, what does it mean? What are we doing? So I always said, a person stepped on my toe. You remember? I always repeat it. A person steps on my toe. She says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me." I said, "You're not forgiven." What? I asked you to forgive me. I didn't mean it. I didn't see your toe. And the reason I don't forgive him is you wouldn't have stepped on my toe if you didn't have that there. Does your hand go up or down if you don't think of putting it up or down? Everything. Oh, but you didn't think of stepping on my toe. Well, right now he didn't. But there was something else that he may have been thinking, and that's why he stepped on my toe. Now he has to take away the pain that he inflicted, that his consciousness wanted to inflict. It doesn't happen by itself. We become so separated between when the consciousness began and when the action takes place. It could be 3 days, 6 years, and so we do not relate things anymore because we live in such a fragmented state of consciousness. That's our problem. Everything is so separated, and all of these names is only to try to create unity. What do you mean unity? We try to eliminate time. When we say Hashem Melech, Hashem Allah, we're thinking how to eliminate time. Why? Then we can understand the process. Then when someone steps on my toe, then the first thing he'll do is not say, "I'm sorry." That's the first reaction. But say, "How can I help you? Do you have pain right now? I'll go get..." He'll be more connected with the pain rather than, "Forgive me. I didn't mean it." But if he could understand, that's not true. He did mean it. But it may have happened 6 years ago. May have been angry about something. And that consciousness doesn't disappear. We are so fragmented. That's our problem. And so when we commit offenses, we instill energy into Satan. Now when we say we should do tshuva, what are we doing? Saying al chet, and now whatever I did over the past year comes Yom Kippur, it's all over with. Not true. Even when I understood, the Zohar said tshuva is tashuv hey. I didn't understand it. I thought I understood it, but it was certainly more of an enlightenment, more of a satisfaction than just go to shul, and we know this guy is a criminal, and he's a cutthroat, but he figures once a year he can come and say, Al chet, I'm sorry, and he can wipe it all out. And that's why people still go, maybe on Yom Kippur, figuring that now they atone, and they got the whole thing mixed up. Atonement, meaning they can atone for their sin. No, at one minute it means you have to be one with the light. You have to understand what you've done, and more so, you have to not only tashuv hey, to take your desire to receive as we learn it, tashuv hey, to return the hey, to return the malchut that we were discussing. The Ari is discussing about Kanani. We are Kananim. All of us are Kananim when we commit an offense, when we do an Aveirah. The reason is because if we do not, now it's going one step further with it. When we do tshuva, we have to return the light. That when I commit an offense, there's a force now that I've activated called Satan. Satan is not a force unless I give him the energy. Which energy? The light force of God. I've transferred the light force of God that wants to do good for us. I've taken that same light force and I've transferred it. That's what Aveirah means. I've transferred it to Satan. That's what it means. Nothing more and nothing less. And I'll share with you one other thing that I wanted to be in your consciousness, because we're coming back to who's the healer. I haven't forgotten. We're still coming back to who's the healer. But all of these different rules that were laid down by the Ramban, by the Ibn Ezra, right? He says, who's going to heal if God hits you? HaKatuv Ama Yach v'Yachshivenu v'Tama shelo tuchal lerapeh kasher tzirapeh mimakat ben Adam. If there's a healing, it cannot be, if there's an offense, meaning God was the cause of it. In other words, when a person hits, he hits, and he breaks an arm. It's obvious. Yes, it was the light force being directed by this person, because his hand, the power in the hand is only the light force of God, has now been directed. Rather than sharing, rather than doing productive things, he's used it for a negative purpose, to hurt this man. To hurt this man. Now it's up to the person. That's why it says, then the person can heal. What does it mean the person's going to heal? What does it mean the person? That means it has to be a doctor, someone who's going to heal. Who's going to heal? Person himself. Person himself is going to heal. How is he going to heal? When this person does tshuva, the person who inflicted this physical wound does tshuva. In effect, what he's doing is, as I said, there are two bodies. I hope we can put all this information, but it's all connected, one with each other, but I can't repeat each time all of the information. When he committed this offense, he strengthened Satan. He inflicted this person with Satan, gave him energy. He became attached. He became attached to this person. This person, whether it be the rofeh, but it also must be the person who afflicted the damage, is the healer. He's the healer. He's the healer. Now, there are two aspects. there is the force of Satan that must be removed. And that it won't heal. That's why he says, only when there's an affliction by a person, it's obvious that he's the perpetrator. But let's say it's cancer. It didn't come from anybody. Oh, sure, there are suits against insurance companies. People have developed cancer from smoking, right? So they sue the tobacco companies. Who's at fault? The tobacco companies, right? Does everyone get cancer from smoking? Everyone? Well, they have a statistic. 150,000 people died of lung cancer. And they attribute it, there's a sign now on every carton, right? How many people smoke in the United States? How many people smoke? Millions! Millions! I don't understand the tobacco company. And a handful, relative to the amount of people that are smoking that don't get cancer. How many people die each year of cancer of the lungs? And it's only smoking? Meaning there's no... What about non-smokers? Do they ever get cancer of the lungs? Yes. But we've lost all perspective. If a person, in this case, it says, and that's why the Torah stresses it, a person took his fist and a stone. When you take a fist and you take a stone, it's obvious who the perpetrator is. But if it's not a fist and it's not a stone, who is it? God. Well, what do you mean it's God? Yes, it's the light force of God. It's always the light force of God. But that light force of God is not translated, is not transformed into a Satan energy unless I took, through an Aveda, took the light force of God, which is Eitz HaChaim, which is in me, and I transfer it to him. I've given him the energy. He's the force that kills. He's the force that damages. And therefore the Ramban says, this person can say, give me the money, and not to use it for something else. What? We ask, what's the difference? What about questions? What's the difference? What's the difference? Because when this person took a stone or his fist, I didn't say that when someone steps on my toe, and we've learned in Kabbalah that when someone kills somebody, he's supposed to be put to death. But what does the Zohar say about the victim? What does the Zohar say about the victim? Do you remember what you learned? The victim was supposed to die. The victim was supposed to die. Or not, there would not be justice in this world. What kind of justice is this? Someone's walking along the street and someone's shooting at somebody else, and by accident, the moment you say by accident, what you're saying is what science is trying to corrupt us with: uncertainty. You were at the wrong place at the right time, right? Wrong. Wrong, says the Zohar. Why would this person be put to death if he killed somebody? Premeditated even. It has to be premeditated. And all of this is in this week's Parsha to teach us. This Parsha wants to teach us one thing: the unity of everything. That a soul never dies. A soul which is part of God. If it's part of God, then there is no such thing as it died and gone. There is no disappearance of spirituality. This whole Parsha tells us about that, if it's premeditated or not. Now, it's premeditated. Says the Zohar, how could someone who is not deserving have been a victim of this other person? And the answer is that the victim is not a victim that is not deserving of it. That means anything that happens to us, we are deserving. However, the perpetrator, he has his own tikkun. Now, did this person have to pull the trigger? Could have been somebody else. Why did you pull the trigger? And therefore, this person did not resort to restriction, and he pulled the trigger. So each individual has their own particular tikkunim, but things do not happen haphazardly. And that we learn in the Zohar in this week's Parsha. Also concerning premeditated, or if it was he was walking under a ladder and he didn't mean to kill him, he has to run to Ari Miklat in time, but it's all the same. Whatever we're discussing now answers the whole Parsha. The whole Parsha. All of the questions that now, when you read, that you can ask and try to understand the deeper implications. When this person takes the fist and beats this person is deserving. The person is deserving. Why does the Ramban, is so profound, why does the Ramban say that if the victim decides that I don't want to heal myself, I'm going to take your money, you got to pay me for going to the doctor, but I don't want to heal myself. What the Ramban wants to tell us is that the victim wants to separate himself from the perpetrator of this offense when he took his fist and beat him. In other words, these are two separate people having no connection with each other. And the answer is no. No. This person beat him. He should not have beaten him. This person who's the victim is supposed to be a victim. Now he's saying, I don't want to be healed. But his perpetrating this crime, this offense, is connected. Or not, he would not be there to pull the trigger or to beat him if he was not deserving. Now, yes, he should have restricted. He didn't restrict. Now he has to go through the process because he did not restrict and use his fist to beat this man and create and cause an injury. This person cannot be healed. This person cannot be healed if he will not be the cause of healing. Because there has to be healing because he's also involved. The person who used the fist to hurt and cause injury to the second person is involved, not separated. It's not someone who created an offense and now this person should go to a doctor. He's involved. He has to do tshuva in order for him to be healed. The doctor is not going to heal him. The doctor cannot heal him because there's another Zohar that says, how could a doctor heal? And what happens if the patient dies? I say a surgeon performs an operation. Sometimes they know that they're guilty, in fact, because they made a mistake. So I don't even want to talk about the one who made a mistake. It's obvious. But he has a license, the same way as we understand someone who drives a car and has received a license and he doesn't know how to drive. And Chas v'Shalom kills somebody, he's a licensed murderer. If he didn't have a license, then it would be another crime. If he has a license and he wasn't under intoxication, but he passed the test, but he doesn't know how to drive well. And another person, having more experience maybe, because he only has been driving for a week, caused that. Is he a murderer? In Western society, he's not. According to the Zohar, according to the Torah, this person's a murderer. Unpremeditated or premeditated, that will run into two different classes of people. But that it's murder, and that if it's even unpremeditated murder, he must run away to an orei miklat, meaning the Torah wants to teach us that we do not separate the perpetrator from the victim. Therefore, he says that if he doesn't want to use the money to be healed, he wants to spend it for other things, and he will not be healed, then he will not be absolved. The perpetrator will not be absolved, because being absolved, saying, I'm sorry, here's the money, and you're not healed, he is connected with this process. He caused it, and as long as it does not return to its former position, now he's still guilty. He's still guilty. So he gave him the money. Yeah, but he's not healed the same way as this person who steps on someone's foot. He says, I'm sorry. Did you take away the pain? If you didn't take away the pain, then you're not sorry. Then you are not forgiven. Because the pain is there. You inflicted the pain, and now you have to remove the pain. It's removed by his doing tshuva and using some of these names and so on and so forth. Says the Zohar that this person who heals is given permission to heal. He understands that he is only a shliach. He is only a channel. He's only a channel. How is he a channel? This person was gifted to know that the Chet Beit Vav, in this case, will heal the person. You asked me if he went to Harvard University. Thank God he didn't. He learned the 72 names. We asked, who became the healer? Avram Avinu was a healer. He knew the 72 names. He knew the 42 names of the Adam Bakar. He knew these things. That's the healer. How did we know he's a healer? The proof was in the pudding. It was not that the person walked out after a treatment and he says, but I had a friend that just didn't feel well. Went into the hospital, went through every conceivable test, and the doctor comes out to him and says, I've got good news for you. He says, there isn't a thing wrong with you. He says, isn't that wonderful? But listen, can you tell me how I can get rid of my pain? Yeah, it's all wonderful. The tests show what you're showing in your testing, whatever it was, but the person still feels the pain. The same way as he stepped on his foot and he says, I'm sorry. Or he beat this person with his fist and he remains that way. He can't say, well, I've given them the money. I paid him. No. He has to remove that energy that he gave to Satan, because Satan is the one that makes this person feel the pain and suffering. Is it the light force? Yes. That's called an Aveda. He beats someone with his fist. He's not permitted to beat another person. And therefore, the Ramban says, it's so profound, that if he wants to use this money and not go to a healer, a person who sits all day must support his family if he has one, must be able to eat, and he's been gifted. He's a channel. And he heals. Not someone who says, I'll give you a treatment because I've got a degree. I'm doing Reiki, and I'm doing Ralphing, and I'm doing all the other things. They may all help. But the proof has to be in the pudding. Does the person feel well? I think I feel better. Well, depends. Someone has cancer, he goes, he's got to be cured. If not, then the person didn't cure him. The person didn't cure him. Should not be paid. So that's why the Ramban stresses this point. Everything has to be restored to its former position. The same way, and this is the final thought that I understood by tshuva. What tshuva means, more than just, we know it doesn't mean I'm just sorry. It doesn't mean that. It means more than that. That the perpetrator plus the victim both have to have a consciousness. That's why he's involved. That's why he's involved. The perpetrator is involved in the healing process because his consciousness took molecules, took the DNA. Remember we asked about the DNA? And he corrupted the DNA of this person. Because normally the DNA grows hair, it should do regeneration, but we have been influenced by Western medicine that, get older. It's expected. It is not expected. Just because he says it's expected, why does he say it's expected? One simple answer. And he won't deny it. He doesn't know how to reverse the process. So he says it's expected, as if I need his information, his Harvard degree to tell me that, fella died at age 110. Normal. I mean, who lives until 100? Wouldn't everyone be happy to live to 110 or 120? Everyone would love to live until that age. So it's expected. And the answer is it's not expected. The only reason it's expected because we have been instilled, we've been influenced by this kind of consciousness. But the tree of life, the Etz HaChaim consciousness, and sequences and combinations are all here, except we have corrupted these sequences by permitting Satan, with his sequences, to corrupt the effectiveness of an abagyataz, and he twists around the letters. What we have to put into our consciousness is tshuva. Not only tshuva that we have to say, I'm sorry, not enough. But we have to take that tumor. Tumor is made up of what? What's it made up of? Is it made up of any different substance that is in the body? Is it a new substance? No. If you know anything about it, same thing. Except the same cells don't behave like normal cells. But what are they? Where did they come from? Where did these cells come from? Are they different cells? The answer is no. Their behavior is different. Not the cells themselves. They are the same cells. Different behavior. Why different behavior? Different behavior is because we cause the different behavior. We are the only cause through our consciousness of thinking negativity, etc. and so on. Now, Tshuva says that I take these same cells and I bring it back. Tashuv Hey. Here's atoms. Here's atoms. When this table is burnt, we know how to burn this table. They think that's the way you do with a tumor. You burn the table. What happens with the 99% of the structure? Is it destroyed? No. It's the same atoms. 99% of this table is atoms. When you burn the 1%, they go back to where they were. Undifferentiated. When they become a table, they are differentiated. The same way as the DNA, the sperm, the same sperm, whatever power is in that sperm, then becomes what? A leg of the fetus, the brain of the fetus, the eyes of the fetus. Was it there before? No, the same cells become differentiated now. Into what? Into an eye. Is the eye different? When I told you the story about the Kabbalists, is the eye different than the nose? Is the eye different than the ears? Made up of the same stuff, except they become differentiated in one respect. Now that same cell somehow is translated into an ear, and it looks like an ear, but it's 99% of the same stuff. There is a unity in our body. So tshuva also must extend to the point that if there's a pain, what's the pain? Satan now has come in because of a negative action, comes in, and this person deserves to have that foot come on his foot and cause that pain because of a pride. And now both of them say, both of them get together. Both of them, like the Ramban says, both of them have to get together. The perpetrator and the victim have to get together and say, both of us have to take back the sequences that we permitted Satan And what does he do? What's his system? Does he use the alphabet? Yes. Same alphabet. The same alphabet. The same kavanot. Except he corrupts it. I give you a little example. That sometimes when I'm doing, let's say on Parnassah, and we know that, boy, is he powerful, how he can make us move. And we say, and we want to give strength into the power of Parnassah. We could wind up saying we want to give strength to our enemy. Meaning we really wanted to say to get rid of the enemy. But he took away our consciousness, and actually we could be repeating words saying to give strength to the enemy. That's how serious it is. How serious it is. Because everything is right here. And with our consciousness, this is the tshuva. More than just, I'm sorry. More than even, and what we said, what's Elul? To restore. That if someone murdered somebody and he left over, and this person had a wife with 49 children, so he does tshuva, yeah, but they haven't got food on the table. So I answered it one time I answered, well, what happens if she now married, and this guy was a poor guy, couldn't support his family, and now she finds a husband and he's a multi-billionaire, and now will she be totally sorry about what happened? I mean, she struggled with the first guy. This is the way we answered it, but now it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. Literally restore what was.